What does advocacy look like in this moment? I know you all are, especially our student athletes, are juggling so much, but what does sort of stepping forward, what does the conversations in terms of action look like for you all amongst your teams or your peers?
Well, I was kind of similar to Kate when it came to social media. I wasn't really posting much. I saw social media was great, but it was more so, I guess my views changed over the summer. I said, well, before I haven't really been posting, but I can use social media as a way to educate others on what's actually going on in the history and how the history is now so relative to what's happening in the present. Right. So I decided to take that mindset onto social media, and I use my Instagram stories all the time to post about Black history, American history, how both of those correlate to what we're seeing today, just all kinds of things, just to educate other people. And so over the summer, I was posting, and then student athletes from the SEC, we got together on that Zoom call, and we have a group chat going there. And then we have a group chat just consumed of student athletes from all over the nation. And there have been lots of different student athlete groups driven to just fight for advocacy and bring change to each campus. So I'm a part of College Athlete Unity, which is one of those student athlete groups, and we just come together and we talk about what's going on our campuses, come together and put together videos that we can put on social media so we can, and some of them have even appeared on ESPN. Wow. And big news stations have shared it. So just coming together, because we know all of us have something to say, whether or not we decide to say, we all have something to say and we want to say. So just coming together, because a million voices is much powerful than just one voice sometimes. So just come together, say what we can, and just not just bring across change on our individual teams, but from conference to conference and across the nation. So what you're seeing now with just one of our student athletes, Jay Urick, with the Matters the Minimum patch, that's huge. It may seem like something small, but he had an idea, he decided to use it, and we're seeing now all of the student athletes or on each team is going to be repping that patch if they choose so. And you're seeing that across all different universities. So just this summer and social media and all of us coming together, we've just been able to come together and say, okay, we have something to say, we want to say it, and we're going to use our voice. So just coming together as a group is so much powerful than coming together individually.
For me personally, I felt a little helpless in the moment, right? What can I do? What can I really do to, so for me, I joined the NAACP, I got online and, donated and just really active on the things that they have online. I just felt like that was something I could do, but overwhelmingly I felt it was my responsibility to bring programming to my team, because I felt like, going back to the education piece, we don't know. I think we have so many athletes who grew up in an environment that was safe and secure, and they all think everyone's treated equally and there's nothing wrong. And what do these things mean? What is systematic racism, and what does that mean, and what does it look like? And so I've really made sure that we have different type of programming. I've asked the players to bring it to us. We had Sheriff Lott come out and talk to our team, because one of our players wants to be a police officer, and I felt a little bit that you felt like you had to choose the police or Black Lives Matter, and I wanted him to know that you could support both. And so I'm trying to show all sides and continue to educate, and I think that's where I feel the most responsible in my role.
Yeah. Thanks so much. That's great. Kate, anything you want to?
I guess we've been talking about education a lot, so I knew when I came into Carolina that I was going to be a student first athlete. That's just a cool thing I do on the side. But I remember choosing education, I was speaking about, I guess, advocacy. Action is also important. So with education, going to education, I knew that it wasn't going to be a lot of us in those roles. So as important it was to advocate, for issues that were important to my heart, I had to go out there and make a concerted effort to implement what I thought was important to me. So I chose education to kind of impact those kids that look like me or from the areas that I'm from, and show them that it's other things that you can do, and even if it's just being a friendly face in a school where it's predominantly it's Caucasian females and males, so just being that one friendly black man in the whole school that you can say, hey, that's Mr. Briggs. Like,
Yeah.
he knows what I'm going through. Like, he understands. Like, to me, like, that, like, forget they're not gonna like when I say this, but forget the content and stuff like that. But like, the impact is like so much more important than like, can this kid throw a ball? Yeah, but does he know that like I'm there for him or her, or they them? Like, do they know that like I'm there for them and like it's a safe space? Like, to me, I think that's super important. Like, with education, just educating and also being there, and like that's how I personally view advocacy, is doing something instead of just saying something sometimes.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome, Caden, and especially thinking through how you're planning on using your future endeavors as an educator to be an example, to provide a unique perspective. But I think, and then also just showing students what's possible. And I think in so many ways, we're all a product of somebody in some way showing us what's possible. And I think, I think one way to be an advocate in this moment is to utilize that platform and that space to do so. What else? What are folks thinking, sort of feeling in this moment? We touched on a lot, but just I'm curious a little bit about, as we think about the path forward. We talked about the social media and the way that can be used to spread sort of those positive messages. But how do we sort of engage more? What does that look like? Because I think there's real value in even just what we're doing now, sitting down as a group and sort of engaging. How do we get to that point where we can sort of engage?
I think getting their age group comfortable with expressing what they see and feel. That's for starters. Like our players, when they're freshmen, it's like pulling teeth to get them to express. And I sit there and have these conversations with them, and it's like pulling teeth to get them to be comfortable. I'm like, dude, I was in your house. I know how you live. Share it with everyone else here. We're not trying to, we all come from a difficult place. We're not trying to embarrass anybody, but it's so important that we all understand where we come from so we can learn how to respect and better comprehend one another.
I love the fact that our student athletes are banding together in a number of ways, and even connecting, as you mentioned, and Kate mentioned, with student athletes from other conference or within the conference as well. As we've sort of tried to think about sort of the path forward, what does that look like, either for us as a campus, for some of our teams, or for us as a nation? What does the path through this look like? We talked about action and specific action. Coach Beverly, you mentioned joining and informing and education, but I'm curious, what does the path forward look like for us?
I think it comes down to the difference between equity and equality. Equality is everyone's equal. It's fine. We don't have to do anything special to make sure that others are getting what they deserve. But equity is actively pursuing justice and actively lifting others up, with like using my own white privilege to lift others up, and using my voice to tell the stories of others who don't have the voice to do it themselves. As a public health major, I want to go to PA school, so in the future that could look like recognizing the health disparities that are so strongly associated with minority communities and using that in my care for minority individuals. And so just acknowledging that where people come from and their race and their story has a huge impact on their health. And that's just specific to what I want to do in the future, but using our education now to inform what we do in the future after we leave Carolina.
For me, this happened before George Floyd because I do a year-end evaluation every year, and it has a question and it says, what is something Coach Bev needs to know but she's not going to want to hear? And Lauren wrote in her year-end evaluation to have a better relationship with your African-American athletes. And I remember when I read it, my initial reaction was, probably an eye roll. Like, I don't treat Lauren any different than anyone else in the locker room was probably my initial when I read it, right? And then we scheduled our meeting, and I always want to address anything that, she clearly had the courage to write that. So now I want to talk about it. And we went on to have a great conversation where we both brought our own perspectives into the room. We left having had a great conversation, but when we finished, I realized that Lauren really just opened my eyes to that she needed more from me, and that I could do that. And I think when I zoom out and look at it, it took a tremendous courage from Lauren to speak out. She could have skipped that and just moved on. So I think people having the courage to speak up, and I think the willingness to listen is going to be big in the path forward as well. I think people have to continue to listen, the empathy piece that you mentioned, Frank. And I think we've got to continue to do those things to keep moving forward, and that we change history in a new direction. But I think it is people stepping up outside of their comfort zones, like Lauren has.
It's your generation now, and your platforms that you guys have, that you're more prepared to understand him, and you're more prepared to understand her, and her and I are going to be out of here pretty soon. but now you guys learn, don't take this for granted, and there's education, better understanding, empathy. So 20 years from now, we're like in so much better place than what we were in. Even though we're in a much better place now than we were in 1980, it's still too close to the ugliness to take to stop fighting for the growth that needs to take. And here's a lot for your age group. The thing you need the most anytime you're trying to create change is patience, persistence, and patience. You can't stop. You got to speak. You got to push, but you can't get frustrated. You got to have patience, because change takes a long time to get things to move in the direction they need to move.
So I guess for me, like, I think it just boils down to listening, learning, and acting. So like listening to understand, like being in the room like this and hearing everybody's different points of view, and like you said earlier, listening to understand, not listening to respond, I think is super important. And just having those difficult conversations, because it's not easy, because if it was easy, things would have changed by now, obviously. But like having those conversations and listening, whether it's somebody you agree with or disagree with, but truly listening. And then once you listen, be willing to learn about what that other person is saying, because if it's important enough for them to say it, then you should at least attempt to learn about it and just educate yourself to not to be so narrow-minded in your viewpoint. So then once you learn to act, like, I can listen and know, but if I don't act, then what good is me listening and learning? So whether it's patches or marches or entering spaces that aren't normally for, I guess, your minority group, just making a concerted effort to change and being patient and persistent. I think when you do those things together, I hope, I'm only 21, so I don't know, but I hope that like stuff changes. We'll see.
Thanks so much, Kate. And a wise 21. I think all of our students, all of our student athletes, extremely wise. Lauren, I want to give you the last word.
Yes, I would say just realizing how important this moment is for all of us. I think when we are studying in school and we're looking back in the 1960s, the civil rights movement, we are in a movement right now. Yeah. And it's up to you what you want to decide to do with that, because for my grandchildren, I want to be able to tell them, I went and did this for you, and that's why you can do this right now. So I think about pretty much the future, because I want people in front of me or behind me who's coming after me to have a much better experience than I had. My parents did a lot so I can have a better experience and more opportunities than they had. My grandparents did the same thing. So just realizing where we are, and we all have power. Regardless of our experience, we have unique experiences, we all have power. And it's just choosing to use your voice, choosing to use that power to just bring more love into the world, because if it's the opposite of hate, that's what we need. So that's it.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So I think we can wrap up there. I want to thank each of you, Kate and Coach Beverly, Kate, Coach Martin, Lauren. Thanks so much. I want to thank our athletics administration and staff and team for putting this together. I thank you all for being leaders in your way, and thanks for being Gamecocks. And I think that with the spirit that's here in this room, it makes me extremely optimistic moving forward. So thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you're doing to bring attention to all this on our campus and our community.
Thanks, Coach.